Hey everybody, it's Jason with Parallel Reality coming back with here today with an article from December 16th from Outkick. And I saw the headline here and I haven't read this article yet. And all I said to myself was, of course, something like this exists coming from the Washington Post. Of course it does, because you can always count on the Washington Post to have the stupidest take humanly possible. So it says Washington Post column asks whether the Boston Tea Party was terrorism committed by black-faced white men. So you can see we're already getting into the really, really, really stupid just from the headline. So it says exactly 250 years ago today, and that is from December 16th. It says American colonists stuck it to the British Parliament by dumping 342 chests of tea into the Boston harbor. It was an act of defiance that helped to kickstart the Revolutionary War and to form the free and powerful country the United States is today. Well, I mean, we could create so much given things that are going on, but I get what you're saying. So how did the Washington Post choose to commemorate the men of the Boston Tea Party by condemning them and calling them racist? Obviously, yes, because that's the only game the Washington Post has. They have no one that can think beyond that sort of thing at this point. So the columnist named Theodore R. Johnson, I have no idea who that is, and I honest to God don't care, wrote an op-ed this week titled, "Was the Boston Tea Party an act of terrorism? It depends." Depends on what exactly? The skin color of the perpetrators? So of course the answer to that is yes. And here's a picture of the Boston Tea Party. To see, Johnson paints a picture that symbolizes the revolutionary spirit. A group of brave patriots yelling no taxation without representation tosses crates of tea from the British East India Company into the water to lay the cornerstone of the democratic republic we enjoy today. So, but that's not really what happened, he says, because obviously he would know because he was there or is a scholar. And again, I don't know who the hell this person is and don't care. Says, no, the actual Boston Tea Party was much more nefarious. It was actually a horde of entitled white men wearing blackface and Native American headdresses to commit seditious conspiracy and destroy private property. So glad to know that this guy who writes for the Washington Post is standing for the British overlords from 250 years ago. So thank you. Now, who sounds like a traitor here? Anyway, said the riotous mob trespassed on 3 ships and destroyed goods worth nearly 2 million in today's money, all because they didn't want to obey a duly passed law. The column reads, says, and so, according to the writer, the Boston Tea Partiers were terrorists. First of all, before we even go to that, like, how many terrorists do you know, like, just go and like dump stuff off a ship and then just leave? Like, nobody was killed, as far as I know. My early American history is admittedly a bit lagging, but I don't recall anybody dying because of this, or in fact, even really being hurt. But anyway, it says, first of all, were they wearing blackface or were they disguised as Native Americans? Because you can't claim both. Yeah, that's true. It says, and second, it's absolutely wild that the same people who defended the devastation caused by Black Lives Matter riots are suddenly concerned about the destruction of private property. Yes, because it's not supposed to make sense. Okay, their their morals are contradiction about everything. So again, it's not going to make sense. So it says the Boston Tea Party is a myth. Well, we know it's not. It's a historical fact that it happened. As the columnist then goes on to discuss American folklore and the way our history books heroicize our founding fathers, hardworking, honest, self-made men, like the tale of George Washington confessing to cutting down a cherry tree. And we do it to feed the idea of American exceptionalism, a shining city on a hill, the first thing a light touches. So this coming from a guy who is fully enjoying the freedoms like free speech that Washington laid the foundation for. And he wrote, but the heroes of these myths don't look like the majority of Americans today. How are they supposed to know that, you absolute spoon? Like, stop with this freaking line of stuff like, Jesus H. Does many of us descend from people labeled threats or at best sidekicks and free riders? It leaves us wondering when we'll get to be the protagonist in a core national myth. I don't know. Maybe if the British take over and you need to spill some more tea? What are you looking for here, buddy? It says, there it is. The real problem with the celebration of American history is that it's too white, which, yes, of course it is. So he wrote, not because the lessons of the foundational myths are invalid, but because heroes should look like the nation they embody, the people they represent. No, not necessarily. There can be heroes of any stripe. I mean, how many in this country, like right now, how many people do you hold up as heroes that do not look anything like you? I mean, I watched sports my entire life, really, until just a few years ago because of all the wokeness. And I can tell you, like, the very first people I remember idolizing in sports were all black. I'm not black. I'm a Jew. Okay, I'm a white Jew. Okay, and no one cared. Okay, my first favorite baseball player was Leon Durham, who was the first baseman for the Cubs in the early to mid '80s before Mark Race took over. Football was obviously the Bears, again Chicago area. Walter Payton was everybody's favorite player. Okay, Michael Jordan is probably until the day I die will be my all-time favorite sports player. I grew up when Michael Jordan was coming to prominence. Okay, everybody talked about him. I mean, like to sit here and say like they need to look like me, who cares? I liked them because they were damn good at what they did and they brought my city championships. Okay, and people loved them for that and still do. Okay, even though rest in peace, Walter Payton says interested, except Leon Durham didn't. I should say that because it was the Cubs. So that was just a couple years ago instead of 1984 or something like that. It's interesting. You know who else didn't look like a founding father? Says, and the author says, yeah, is himself. So in fact, in the 1770s, women like me had no legal identity separate from their husbands and were unable to sign contracts. Oop, the article just skipped. Unable to sign contracts, own property, obtain access to education, get divorced, and gain custody of their children. But 250 years later, I'm not complaining about the fact that Paul Revere didn't need to wear a broad and do his midnight ride. I can still acknowledge people for the feats they accomplished, even if it wasn't all about me. So it's just for good measure, though. Here's a picture of me throwing tea into the Boston Harbor. Well, there you go. It's that revolutionary American spirit. Then she writes, I digress. So Theodore isn't talking about gender, though. He's talking about color. And he's also conveniently leaving out the black heroes of the American Revolution. Yes, there certainly were those the black heroes. Says there's Crispus Attucks, who I do remember studying in junior high and high school, who many historians credit as the first man to die for American freedom in the 1770 Boston Massacre. There's Salem Poor, who was a hero at the Battle of Bunker Hill, and I don't know anything about him. You have to rectify that. Said Phyllis Wheatley, whose poems in support of the Revolution inspired George Washington so much he invited her to Cambridge. Yes, because George Washington is such an evil dude. Yeah. Why would he do that? The records even indicate there were men of African descent who took part in the Boston Tea Party. Yes, everybody should have taken part in it. It's a selective memory, maybe. So I remember learning about all of these people in school. And yeah, like I said, the only one that I had learned about was Crispus Attucks. I hadn't heard of these other two, unless I've just memory hold their names, but they just don't sound familiar. Again, kind of pony up on my early American history. Says, is Theodore intentionally leaving them all out? Probably. Says, or is he so blinded by rage against white people that he forgot black people also play a role in American historical lore? Yeah, he's being probably purposely obtuse. I mean, he works for the Washington Post, so you can't expect him to, know what he's talking about. This is the WAPO columnist specifically mentions Harriet Tubman, Rosa Parks, and Thurgood Marshall as actual heroes who embodied the American spirit and should be admired for their work. Yes, of course. Because I'm certainly not disagreeing, but I have news for Theodore. All of those people, like the men of the Boston Tea Party, rebelled against duly passed law. That is correct. Is Rosa Parks a terrorist? Of course not. But that's how stupid Theodore R. Johnson's argument is. So stupid, in fact, that I'm mad I just spent all this time refuting it. Yeah, it's pissing me off just thinking about it, reading this person's article about that guy's article. This is like secondhand pissed offness. That's not a word, but whatever. It says, but if nothing I just said resonated with WAPO and its readers, maybe this will. The Boston Tea Party was a rebellion against King George III, the monarchy, and the British Parliament, also a bunch of white people. Yep. And let's see here. This was a leftist imbecile. I'm just looking at the comments here. The guy needs a bat to the head now. Don't want to advocate violence. And yeah, yeah, leftist would simp for monarchy. Yeah, so I don't know who's defending the English. Yeah. So, yeah, so yeah, the Washington Post is defending the British overlord. Anyway, what do you guys think about this? What do you think about the? Well, I'm pretty sure I know what you think about the Washington Post, probably the same as anybody else thinks, which is that they're just a pile of dog crap. What do you think about them saying this? Let me know in the comments below. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.